Hello and welcome to a dedicated improvement and reflection time session on how can I make my introduction more captivating. That means how can you draw someone in so they want to read the rest of your essay and so they're intrigued to know what your argument is and how you're going to back it up. Well, there are three main steps. Number one, make sure you give a brief overview of the event you're going to discuss. So, for example, if you're talking about the difference between the 1905 and 1917 revolution outcomes, you could start with something like, the Tsar was left with no choice but to abdicate, ending the 300-year Romanov dynasty in March 1917, despite his ability to overcome revolutionary problems in 1905. You've briefly introduced the event you're going to discuss. Don't try and write a whole story about everything that you know about the event, but a brief sentence or two sentences to introduce the topic. Make sure you have an argument. So, for example, if it's asking you what the most important reason was, so, for example, was the Russo-Japanese War the main cause of the 1905 revolution, then you're going to say X was the most important factor, or the main reason for the different outcomes in 1917 and 1905 was Y, whatever it happens to be. Mention briefly as well the other factors you'll discuss. So as well as saying what you think the most important reason was, or the most important factor or cause, or most significant thing was, also mention the other factors or the other causes that you're going to discuss. So these are the three things you need to include in your introduction. Let's have a look at two students' answers, not answers, but their introductions. So this first student's introduction, let's see how many of these criteria they've met. So the Tsar survived 1905 but not 1917 because of many reasons. For example, the loyalty of the armed forces, broken promises of political reform, World War I and the Tsar's own mistakes. Okay, have they given a brief overview of the event discussed? Well, not particularly. They've mentioned that the Tsar survived 1905 but not 1917, so they haven't really given an overview of the event they're going to discuss other than just mentioning that he survived 1905 and not 1917. So they've sort of half done this one. Have they got an argument? Have they said what the main reason was for the different outcomes? Well, not really. They've just mentioned different reasons for the Tsar losing his power in 1917. Have they mentioned briefly the factors they're going to discuss? Well, yes, they have managed to do that. They've said loyalty of the armed forces, broken promises of political reform, World War I and the Tsar's own mistakes all led to his loss of power. So yes, they have done this. So some things the student has done well. They've mentioned the factors that they're going to discuss. They've mentioned briefly what they're going to discuss, but not in very much depth. But they haven't yet really shown any form of argument that they're going to make throughout their essay. So it's not quite as captivating as it could be. Okay, so let's take a look at the second student's answer and think about whether or not they've made a captivating introduction. Although the Tsar survived the revolution in 1905 by using a mix of military suppression and political mediation in the form of the October Manifesto, in 1917 the Tsar was unable to repeat his success and succumbed to the revolution, abdicating his power and ending the 300-year Romanov dynasty. The reason for the Tsar's inability to overcome this revolution, unlike in 1905, was largely down to the loss of loyalty of the armed forces, although the Tsar's own mistakes, World War I, and lack of political reform all also played a role. Okay, so let's see how captivating was their answer. Have they given a brief overview of the event they're going to discuss? Well, yes, they have. It says, although the Tsar survived the revolution in 1905 by using military suppression and the October Manifesto, in 1917 he was unable to repeat his success and had to abdicate his power. So, yes, they have given a brief overview of the event discussed. Have they given an argument? So have they given the main reason why they think these two events had different outcomes? Well, down here it says that it was largely down to the loss of loyalty of the armed forces. So yes, they have said what they reckon the main reason was that the Tsar was unable to overcome this revolution, unlike in 1905. And have they mentioned briefly what other factors they're going to discuss? Yes, they have, because it says that the Tsar's own mistakes, World War I, and lack of political reform all also played a role. So they've mentioned also the other factors they're going to discuss. So overall, this introduction is a little bit more captivating than the first student's introduction, because they not only have given us a brief introduction to the topic, they've got an argument that they're going to make throughout their essay, and they've mentioned the other things that they're going to compare their most important factor to and explain why they've decided this was a more important factor. Have a go at adding to or adapting your introduction so you can make it even more captivating than it already is. Good luck with your exam.